Hello, I'm Brigantia, Blackbird of Blackbird's Brew. Happy Tuesday and welcome to the series Pagan Problems. Before I begin, I want to briefly apologize for the obvious lighting issues I'm experiencing today. At the moment, it can't be helped. I've jerry-rigged some solutions, but all of the lights and my overhead lights have decided to burst their bulbs all at once, and we don't appear to have any replacement bulbs in the storage cabinet at this time, so I couldn't just tend to it. So we're managing the best that we can. Just more evidence that Mercury retrograde is indeed upon us. But let's move on to the actual subject of this video. And I have to confess that this week's topic is a bit self-indulgent for me. But as we are just days away from the autumn equinox and we are moving swiftly into Samhain season, I would ask that you please bear with me because I do believe that this subject has broader relevance and this video is serving more than just getting a few feelings off of my own chest. So, on that note, let us begin. Like all other emotions, grief is a reaction. If you've ever taken a look at studies in which they're looking at brain scans taken of people who are experiencing emotion, you will have noticed that they've observed that the rational thinking part of the brain is always activated first, and the emotional aspect of the brain is triggered afterwards. In short, our feelings are a reflection of what we truly think. This is why they can be incredibly revealing, and why we may feel quite vulnerable depending on who it is that witnesses our most emotional moments in life. And this may be particularly true when it comes to grief, because genuine grief, which is not to be confused with hysterics or high drama, but genuine grief reveals who and what we truly love. And there's no one way that grief is experienced or expressed. It is truly an individual state of affairs, but it does have a way of taking us out of everyday life, making us almost detached as if we were this third person observer of life instead of a participant in life. It's this odd space of being in between things. We're no longer in the old circumstances, but we haven't yet moved into the new. And so the grief-stricken are at a loss. They're at loose ends, and they're wandering through this mist, groping for solid ground. But that's what grief is like. The unavoidable question that follows is how best to deal with it. Because life goes on, whether we feel up to facing it or not. Oftentimes during periods of upset, there's necessary business that has to be attended to, and it cannot be delayed until such time as a person feels better. And clearly, we can't indulge the full force of our feelings of grief all of the time. We are no good to ourselves or to anyone else in that condition, nor are we in a state that is capable of showing honor to that which or for whom we are grieving. With that being said, running away from our feelings entirely and pretending that that's coping is equally useless. This is the reason why people are often advised not to make big, drastic changes during periods of mourning, not because there aren't necessary adjustments that can and should be made, but because a drastic change is a method through which people commonly try to escape their feelings rather than dealing with them. It doesn't work, of course, but that never stops the desperate. And while I am no expert on the complexities of the human heart, but just judging from personal experience and the observations of other people around me, it does seem to me that the beginning of learning how to manage grief lies in allowing oneself to become accustomed to the sensation. Not ignoring it, not wallowing it, simply allowing it to be and understanding that this is going to be part of oneself for a period of time. And whatever the cause of the grief, accepting that what has happened, it cannot be undone, and understanding, at least on the intellectual level, that because it happened, it has altered the future. This lays the groundwork for coping and eventual healing. And as pagans, we understand the deep connection between emotions and the element of water, frequently describe our state of our feelings in that energy in very watery terms. grief has been likened to a storm, but also to a violent tide. And I like the analogy of a tide the best because tides, as we know, they ebb and they flow. They go out, they come in. And honestly, so do waves of grief. And physically, we can't bear our emotions at their strongest as being a continuous state of being. And even our most forceful emotions cannot sustain themselves and will eventually run out of fuel. So allowing ourselves to rest when the strength of our grief is, it's ebbing away, letting ourselves have that downtime is necessary. It doesn't mean that we are disloyal or disrespectful. And it doesn't mean that we're not going to have another wave when we might feel quite overwhelmed. But we do have a period of rest that allows us to recover our nerves a little bit. And this is a natural and necessary part of the process, so we shouldn't fight that. It also helps when we have an outlet for grief. Our feelings have to go somewhere. This isn't just a metaphor. Our feelings are composed of energy, and energy travels, and it can be put places. Witches are especially aware of this, as it is core to the nature of our work. And our instincts will guide us when we need to have an emotional outlet for the overflow of grief. Perhaps we need to exercise. Maybe we need a mental break and just focus on something else for a time. Meditation can help. Creative projects can help. Reorganizing something can help. But whatever it is you choose to do that you feel compelled to do, allow your grief to flow into these activities. This helps minimize the damage to your nerves. It prevents serious damage being done to you physically because nothing kills a person quite like grief and stress. And it also allows the emotion to run through its natural course. Rituals associated with grief are extremely important. Granted, it may feel as though it's the last thing in the world we have the energy for in that moment, but there's a reason why we find traditions associated with funerals and ritualized grieving just around the world. It's in every culture, every religion, every time period of the earth. Marking the occasion is important for us psychologically. It engraves in our minds that what has happened is real and it's not to be ignored, and we need to have that adjustment made very clear within our brains if we're ever going to have our hearts accept it. And performing funerary rites and the like, that helps us process our grief. There's great comfort in perpetuating these traditions because it represents continuity. What has happened before. It will happen again. We are touched on a deeper level by participating in things that have hundreds, if not thousands of years of history than we are by things that were just invented 5 minutes ago. That is why the new is often so inadequate to address our deeper emotions. We need something that connects us, something that reminds us that we're part of a greater whole, and that our lives are playing a part in the ongoing story of humankind. And in our time, our own moment to shed the mortal coil will come, and we will be followed by the next generation, and it continues to cycle on. But we are never alone in this human experience, never truly cut off. We are connected. And after we go through the customary rituals, there can be a sense of peace that follows. We know that we have done what we ought to have done. Due respect has been given, and the value of the one who passed has been acknowledged and remembered. And then going forward, we're able to cope better because our actions during this period of grieving have given us permission to move on. Now, of course, this isn't to say that our feelings of grief just disappear, just like that. No. But they do occupy a different position in our day-to-day life once we have reached this point. We can allow that sharp initial pain to fade into a dull ache until it finally and quietly heals. We can remind ourselves that the time has come to think and focus a little bit less on the loss itself and a lot more about the good memories about the person, the experiences we had with them, what we shared with them, the things we admired about them, the things that they would want to be remembered for. And ultimately, we need to keep in mind that grief is not a place where the human spirit can live. There are times when we visit this realm, and for good reason, but we must resolve to be temporary residents. Life must go on, and we must remember the person we lost would be the first person to say that we have got to return to the business and to the delight of living and allow ourselves to thrive again. That's what I have to say on that subject. Now the time has come for you to let me know what you think. Tell me about it in the comment section below, or better yet, join us on Gilded. There's a link to where you can reach us in the description box. Click on it. It'll take you to our server. It's called Blackbird's Brew, and we'd be very happy to talk with you there. But that'll do it for this video, and I will see you next time. Bye.